Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to Issues Unite. Well, I got my brakes done, so at least they're better than they were. it's um, I don't have the brakes dragging to the point where they're smoking. I'm waiting on parts to get it where I want it to be. Um, so, anyway, people keep talking about wanting change. One of the biggest problems with wanting change is that there's so many different voices, and a lot of people don't even listen to the voices that are being discussed. They pick a stance and stand by it without listening to any other side. Now, it's undeniable that the media manipulates the conversation, the corporate media manipulates the conversation in favor of the oligarchy. And so, it's undeniable we have problems with the media, and undeniable we have problems with our government. Both are controlled by the oligarchy, by the corporate establishment. I'm not going to go into all of that here. What I'm discussing is change and our role in change. People need to give thought to what change they want. We can't continue. I've brought up this passive aggressive stance that so many people have before, comparing it to an ex-girlfriend of mine. I would say, I did most of the cooking. I'd say, I'm tired. I've been working overtime all week. I don't feel like cooking. Let's go out to eat. She'd say, well, good. Okay. Where do you want to go? I'd say, I don't know. What do you feel like eating? I don't know. You pick. So I would pick. And usually I would pick a buffet. Lots of options. Both of us could get something that we liked. No, I don't want to go there. We go there all the time. Okay. What do you want? I don't know. You pick. Okay, I'd pick someplace else. No, I don't feel like having that. Okay, so it was a small town. I would go through one option after another, and she would negate all of them. And I would keep on asking her, okay, well, what do you feel like? I don't know, you pick. Ultimately, I just got so frustrated, I just said, okay, I'm just going to go get a frozen pizza and some beer. I thought you wanted to go out to eat. Not anymore, I just feel like getting drunk. Um, why? What's wrong? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and this is what we run into with discussion on change. People say, well, I don't want this. I don't want this. But they don't say what they do want. Let's take universal health care as an example. Most Americans say they want universal health care, but then there's this contingent that says, I don't want the government involved in my health care. Well, what are your other options? To decide, first of all, the government is going to have to be involved in the funding portion. But then you've got medical standards. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is that Medicare, Medicaid has done a fantastic job over the years, at least historically, of setting medical standards. And a lot of insurance companies, because those standards save money and decrease complications, a lot of insurance companies follow those same guidelines. In other cases, they will follow those guidelines because if they don't follow those guidelines, there are consequences that they will have to pay. And so, but all in all, it is best to have medical standards that are established. A lot of people say, well, I want my care to be between my doctor and myself. Well, first of all, you're making a number of assumptions. The first being that your doctor is concerned with your well being first and foremost, and the second being that you assume your doctor knows what the most up to date information is on any treatment or procedure, etc. And neither of those has to be true. As far as not being in it for a profit, Medicaid, Medicare, and insurance companies have fraud, waste, and abuse departments for a reason, because it is a very big problem. And second, yeah, I mean, and lawyers. You can't take somebody to court and say that they've committed medical malpractice. To say malpractice, that implies that there is a standard of practice, which means there are standards, typical procedures that this doctor did not follow. Well, if nobody is establishing those standards, you don't have a case. You don't have any expectations, okay, that are realistic and measurable against anything else. So there have to be medical standards that are set by someone. Now, if those standards are not being set by the government, then you are relying on those standards being set by a for-profit entity. Okay? How is that going to work out? You're still involving corporations making a profit. You're taking your tax money, you're handing it over to corporations for a profit to establish standards that are supposed to be in your best interest. That doesn't work. That simply does not work. And you cannot expect it to work. We see what the corporate control does. So we have to have research. We have to have evidence-based standards. So when you say that you don't want the government involved, well then who do you want involved? This is the passive-aggressive part, because the people, when you ask them this, they don't want to answer it. They just think it's just magically going to happen. And it's not. This is a process. We have to think about how we get from point A to point B, who is in control, who sets the standards, who monitors those standards, who punishes violations of those standards. Okay? This has to happen. We have to have a central authority that is in charge of making standards. If you want universal health care, that means universal standards. Universal standards means the person that is a billionaire and the person that is in poverty are both getting the same care. That is universal health care. Yeah, you can have concierge service that involves, your water being delivered in a silver chalice with a lace doily, if you got the money to pay for it. But your medical care should still be the same care. And that means someone has to dictate what that standard of care is. Another thing that I was having a discussion with somebody that I normally agree with just a few hours ago. And it was about gun control. And she says that she is against annual gun registration and against this and against that. And this is a big one with gun activists, whatever, they don't want to give anything up. Um, they say they want stricter gun regulations, but then they don't want to be a part of regulating, monitoring. There has to be a method by which this happens. I brought up a number of examples, like what if a gun owner dies? What happens to the guns? What happens to the gun registration? You know, do you have guns? How often do you take them out of the closet or safe or what have you and do maintenance on them? If it comes up missing, do you even know? People that never take their weapons out may not even know their gun is missing. They assume that they may know because their house was broken into, but it may not be that your house was broken into. It could be somebody in your house. It could be a friend, an alleged friend, or what have you, that walks off with your guns. If you die, well, is somebody in your family a criminal or on probation or a felon that is not supposed to own a gun and they walk in and pick it up? How do we track this? If we want safer laws regarding guns, we have to come up with certain standards. We have rights, yes, but those rights are not unlimited and should not be unlimited. The first people that are going to say that they're against any kind of gun control laws are the criminals. Those are the first and foremost people that are against any kind of controls on guns. So there are also a lot of people that say that they are against government involvement in pretty much anything, and a lot of libertarians especially say they would rather just pretty much go do away with any form of government. But when you start asking them questions, such as, well, then who decides what your rights are? And who enforces those rights when those rights are violated? These people are against taxation. Well, who pays for roads? Who pays for schools? And what they wind up, if they give you an answer at all, which is pretty rare, what they wind up talking about is some kind of a socialist structure, which that's not doing away with government. What you're doing there is just replacing one governmental structure with another. Now, it's unquestionable that we need more social inclusion in our government, which is not going to happen as long as we have corporate funding of campaigns and corporate media controlling our information and so forth and so on, which is why I'm in favor of tax-funded elections and campaigns from bottom to top, all the way through, so that anyone can run for office and get the same funding and run for office. But if you just leave things up to the survival of the fittest, you're talking about the survival of the strongest, the survival of the most well-funded, the survival and dictation of the most brutal forces, the most brutal forces that are willing to go the furthest to inflict their will upon others. And this is my problem with that. There needs to be general social control of our government, but there has to be balance. If we went with nothing but social control over the the equal rights movement, the equal rights movement probably wouldn't have happened. Uh, you know, are we going to go to war over each and every issue? It's got to be more complex, but inclusive. And there has to be general debate. I think we're more capable of this today, and we have more access to information to access these debates, but we have to be the ones that are doing so. We have to look for that information, and we have to listen to that information, and we have to be, taking part in the discussion. We can't just sit back and let it all be dictated to us. You can't listen to one side without listening to the other side. This is a debate. There are more, on each issue, there's more than one side. And we can't just say, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, without saying, this is what I want. When somebody asks you, where do you want to go eat? You've got to have a suggestion. You've got to have an opinion. And that opinion has to include what the other people going out to eat want, may be allergic to, can afford, etc. It can't just be throwing tantrums. So this is something that we need to take as a lesson in our everyday lives. It's not just about politics, it's about everything. All right, so that's going to be it for this one. If you can, please donate $1 a month to help expand the channel. A big shout out to Wendy Chavez for donating the other day. You were not supposed to do that. I donated to your fundraising campaign, and then you turn around and donate to me. It don't work that way. But thank you anyway. And I thought I had said it the other day, but I think that got cut off, or I deleted that one because it did get cut off. So I'm sorry for the late recognition. Anyway, if you can donate $1 a month, please do so. I'm putting the link below. And, share this video or podcast, whatever you want to call it, and discuss these issues. Jump into the debate. Get informed. Listen to all sides, because it's important. Thank you, and have a good day.